Well, hello, everyone. We're going ahead and restarting on with our next lovely uh, marketplace or directory, in your case, interview. This is Sandy from Handcraft Nation. And so I'll just go ahead and let you start off by introducing yourself and Handcraft Nation, kind of the story behind it, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so again, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Sandy Barnage, and I'm the co-founder of Handcraft Nation, which is this new directory of artists, crafters, and makers of all kinds. And we're a little bit different from some of the others who are interviewing here at ISG this weekend. We are not an e-commerce platform. What I really love about what we're learning this weekend is that there are all these different marketplaces that are popping up. Some of them are really interested in scaling and getting really big. Some are coming more from, some are coming to, sorry, I was just looking at the chat and I got to remind myself not to distract myself with doing that. I got to stay focused here. Anyway, so some are focused on being co-ops, some are focused on very particular niches. And I think a lot of times right now we're having conversations about alternatives to Etsy that sound like, we're all looking for a different island to move to as sellers, right? And so we have to choose an island that we're going to row our maker boat out to. And I would like to sort of shift that thinking away from being separate, distinct islands to each of these different marketplaces being like a large redwood tree in a forest. And they're all working together to form this new ecosystem of a fundamentally different approach to e-commerce, especially in the United States, and then also rethinking our relationship to material consumerism in American culture more broadly. Buying less, buying better, buying handmade, those types of things. So we're all everybody who's here this weekend is part of that same ecosystem. We're working toward that same overall goal. What I see Handcraft Nation is not being another one of these redwood trees, but we're actually sort of like the mycelium network that's underneath each of these trees. We're the little network of mushrooms that's connecting all of the trees together and allowing them to communicate and allowing them to sort of share resources and nourishment more broadly and to sort of support the overall health of the ecosystem. And so for us, each that network of mushrooms, to like push this metaphor way off the cliff, is made up of different makers themselves. And so it's less it's about us helping to connect not just makers to each other, which I think tends to happen a lot in these spaces, which is natural, it's normal, but we also need to sort of invite the general public in. And usually media has been a big part of that. Magazines, different websites that have offered content, that type of stuff. But as like the journalism world has changed, we need to rethink how we're actually connecting with different audiences that's not so totally dependent on building massive social media networks that benefit the same big companies that we're sort of rebelling against here in terms of the Etsy strike, right? So it's all really long-winded, but it's sort of just a way of like contextualizing where we're coming at. We just heard from Go Imagine, which is obviously kind of the biggest player in this space. And some of the things I'm going to talk about today might sound like, oh, I'm like a mini wannabe version of Go Imagine, but I'm really coming at this from a different perspective where we are trying to create a simple, streamlined directory that will point people who are looking to support handmade makers, especially those who live in their state. And we'll link to wherever you want them to go. Your website, whether you're selling on Go Imagine or Etsy or your own Shopify site or through Instagram, we'll link to that. And we don't interfere. We don't get in the way. We have one fee for a variety of reasons. I can talk about why we charge a fee at all. Unfortunately, it's just the world that we're living in right now for different reasons. But I don't take a cut of anybody's sales. I don't have anything to do with your relationship with your customers. That all happens on whatever e-commerce platform or whatever way that you want to do it. I also think that our approach of being a directory allows us to be much more open and able to embrace people who sell almost exclusively at in-person events or locally. And so often they get left out of some of the larger marketplaces because that's just not what they're doing. And they don't have the capacity to include somebody who does 5 art fairs a year, makes their money and feels good about that. But those makers who are selling predominantly in arts and crafts fairs, which is a big part of what we're interested in supporting, they don't tend to have the SEO that they're able to show up in search engine rankings successfully. So if somebody's looking for a mixed media artist in Central Alabama, it can be very difficult to find that type of person. Now, what we're offering is a tool that will help pull everybody up in the search rankings. We're highly keyword optimized. Again, we'll be linking all over the place. So eventually our links and backlinks will be as competitive as anybody else. And then you can basically, I'm not interested in being a sticky website. My goal is not to keep users on our website for lots and lots of minutes. In fact, I would really rather have somebody come to Handcraft Nation, find somebody that they're looking for or that they're interested in right away, and then click immediately to their website and spend the rest of your time and then spend the rest of the time actually just engaging with the actual artist website, if that makes sense. So maybe I'll just stop there. Sorry.
Yeah, so it sounds, thank you so much for that explanation. I think that's a very clear explanation of what Handcraft Nation is and what you're trying to do. Like you said, you're not trying to build a marketplace. It sounds like you're more like a marketing and traffic redirect tool. Like it's easier to have a centralized place to get more traffic and then send it elsewhere. So can you go a little more into, because I know when we talked before, you were talking about kind of your background and why, you had this, kind of close, history with arts and crafts fairs and caring about that, but also coming from it from a different industry, in your professional world, and why, you felt this was something you could really be successful with, and that your skills leaned into.
Absolutely. So why us, basically? So my brother and I are the two founders of Handcraft Nation. As of right now, it's just us. He's a web developer. He's been working for small to medium-sized direct marketing firms for about a decade. He's a Navy vet. He's a really hands-on guy. He likes welding metal and working with wood and doing all kinds of stuff. So, and I come more from an editorial background. So I worked in higher ed and nonprofit PR. I've been doing that since I was a teenager. I hold a couple of degrees in journalism and have taught journalism. And I'm an indie author, and I'm part of the literary journal world. So I really come from the storytelling side of things. And, we're both very entrepreneurial by nature. And so one thing, as we got kind of talking in the last couple of years, we're always attracted to arts and crafts festivals. We're both the type of people who tend to gravitate toward those circles. And I think that's to blame, we can blame that on our parents. My mom's a quilter. My dad is a 3D artist. He would absolutely reject that term, but I don't know what else you would call somebody who, makes concrete sculptures and metalwork and stuff out of resin. And, I'm like, sorry, man, you're an artist. So we've always sort of grown up like as part of that world in certain ways. We would go to arts and crafts fairs as kids. And there's something about that experience of getting to see people who make things and interact with them directly that always felt very natural and just right to me. And, as time has sort of gone on, I loved Etsy in the early days. But I think just like everyone else, pretty much everybody else here, we've seen the shift as things have gotten bigger. The actual human beings who make really good stuff have sort of gotten lost in the shuffle. And there aren't a lot of tools that sort of really help focus specifically on the type of people who go to arts and crafts fairs and present their wares. And one of the things that I've really noticed when we talk about marketplaces, they're marketplaces, they're designed from a retail perspective. And so they put the products first. That's natural, that feels normal, when you're coming from that perspective. But I come from more of the storytelling side of things. I'm really attracted, when you're walking through an arts and crafts fair, part of the experience is that you are seeing a person, you're seeing the artisan right there, you're seeing their booth, you're seeing it's not just like a particular product. You don't even necessarily fixate on one object that you're seeing, at your first pass through. You're just sort of getting a general vibe of their aesthetic. There's something that's imprinting upon you about encountering that person in this general sense. You're getting a sense of their story. And then you enter their booth and you find an object that works for you and your budget, and you decide, I'm going to purchase this object from this human being in front of me. And so what we're offering as the info directory is flipping this model. Instead of putting up a bunch of products and saying, here, buy this product, I want you to support a person. I want you to find somebody. If you know that you're looking for an object, but if you're looking for a hyper specific object, you've got lots of other places where you can go do that. And that's fine. But if you're looking to find something that's a kind of a special gift, you're looking for something unique for your home, you're looking for a certain type of thing, but you're not hyper fixated on what the thing is, then we can help connect you with the type of people who make things that are worth bringing into your home, that are worth gifting, that are worth putting on your body or in your body. We're really interested in, I would really love to become the premier place for handmade clothing sellers, people who are selling clothing. That can be really difficult to find right now. Or, the soap making world, less of the people who are kind of doing these larger scale productions at this point, but, somebody who's making soap in central Alabama, like where I live, and that's where I'm broadcasting from. And, I love what Go Imagine is talking about in terms of the local. But I think sometimes when we talk about the scale of some of these marketplaces, it's very difficult for an actual person to still rank well in a setting like that. And I'm not criticizing it. What Go Imagine is doing and what some of the other marketplaces are doing is very necessary and important, and it's not what we're doing. What we're trying to do is coming more from a pure marketing services perspective that's built in a really smart way from the beginning. I'm not coming from a pre-existing magazine that has ideas for how things have to be done. We're starting as a digital first tool that is designed with really good information architecture that will rank really well in search engines in the coming months. We launched at the beginning of April, and we have 56 makers, and we've had 2,000 views in the past week alone. So I feel like we're having a good start. We're on the right path in terms of our launch. And now it's sort of just a question of how we connect with other makers and start to really expand so that we kind of flesh it out. Again, I'm being too wordy. I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We have a full hour and have yet to run out of time with somebody. So that's I think it's just fine. I think like we were talking about and talking with John, I think especially in the handmade industry, it really does matter to people, like the person behind the business that they're looking to connect with, the same way that you're talking about, even in these tools, especially after so many people getting burned by the big platforms, they do want to know, like, who are you setting this up and what's your perspective and stuff. So thank you so much for sharing. Let me look at my list, but I do want to let's talk about this first. But I'm very excited about that, like, emphasis on people who don't necessarily sell primarily online, because that is something we've seen really missed even in some of what we do, is the people that are like, well, I occasionally have a sale through like my Facebook page, but I mostly sell in events. And we aren't as geared for that ourselves specifically, because it started with people who were Etsy sellers. But first, how is it decided what sellers are on your site and what kind of like qualifies as handmade for you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, right now the door is very open. I mean, when you go through the process, it takes about 4 minutes for somebody to set up their shop. On our page. So you kind of set up a dedicated page that then links to wherever you want people to go, whether it's your website or your socials or anything like that. And then there's a period of a few days that I have to vet and make sure that it's a real person, that the links go to where they're supposed to go. All signs point to it being a human being who has an actual website that's real. and then it's posted. And at this point, it's pretty simple. As things would start to scale, that process would need to become more complicated and more thorough, obviously. But I think at this point in time, I'm most focused in sort of seeing where it goes, where the community goes, what happens. The good thing about us is that we're very streamlined, we're very efficient, we're very clean in our design and our code. And so we're not interested in adding a lot of bureaucracy and complexity at the personnel level at this point. I know as time goes on, once we start to hit a threshold of 1,000 makers or more, we'll need to have a review board, just to sort of make sure that things are looking good. We do reserve the right to remove shops that do not fit with what we're trying to do. I would only remove a shop that's sort of an obvious scammer, or it becomes quite clear that it's doing the drop shipping thing. And that's part of what the fee helps to discourage. Even Etsy at this point is now charging a $15 fee for new shops. So this sort of fee as first filter is going to become sort of the industry standard. Now ours is, we're coming more from the marketing perspective. Our price point was chosen specifically in mind to be less than one Facebook boost on one post, and those boosts only last for a week. And then that's it. There's no additional fee if somebody actually does click through to your shop. There's no fee related to getting eyeballs on your particular page. We're starting to see those types of funding models come into play with Instagram in particular, and we're not doing any of that. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's less than the price of a lot of registration fees for some of the mid-sized craft fairs. So it should feel right within the comfort zone for people who are at the level and at the place in their business where they are ready to present at arts and crafts festivals. This shouldn't be a barrier to them.
Are you going to be able, like, I know you just started, but like saying that after a year, are you going to be able to release the analytics, not just for this site traffic, but for like how many people clicked through someone's page, right? So they can see that direct effect.
Definitely. Yes. Once we have a really good handle on what the traffic flow looks like, that's one of the things that we'll offer to members, is that they should be able to see that once a year. They should get an analytics sheet that explains that. So this first year, my brother has made it quite clear. He's like, don't promise people things. We will do our best to make sure that it's provided, but things will be, we started in April, so things will be a little kind of unclean in terms of the schedule. But yes, absolutely. I think, and two, you'll also be able to see it on your own website, if you're getting traffic from us. So what we say is one thing, but then you'll actually be able to verify that on your other end if you've got a website. And if you don't have a website, that's okay too. That's actually where we're kind of an interesting option, because if you're selling through now just Instagram drops, or if you're selling through Etsy, or if you've decided like, I don't want to maintain my own website, you don't need to in order to have a page in our directory, because again, wherever you want people to link to, we can do that. And one of the features that we're really excited, and I wish it was in place by the time of this convention, but it's coming in the next couple of weeks, is we're going to have another category on everybody's page where they can list out the arts and crafts fairs that they're going to be selling at that year, or that they've sold at in the past. We're not going to, it's a little loosey-goosey. And then when you click on that particular art fair, it'll come up with a list of other people who are in the directory that also sell at that fair. And so over time, hopefully those populate really well. And one of the reasons for that feature, and why I think that's going to be crucial to us and makes us very unique in this space, is a lot of times when you go to an art fair, you've spent, $50, $100 more, you spent your money, you spent your little budget money, and then you see something else and you're like, I really like that, but I can't buy it today. I just can't. Like, I'm tapped out. If I buy this thing, my spouse is going to kill me. Like, it's just, I don't have any more hands or to carry this thing with. And so you pick up somebody's card and you put it in their wallet, and put it in your wallet, or you lose it, or your toddler eats it like mine does. And so then you lose track of that person. And so many arts and crafts fairs, their own marketing materials are so poor, or their directories are so basic. They just have a long list of names that are involved. But I'm like, well, I don't remember their name. I remember what their stuff looked like. I don't even remember their shop name, or if I even saw their shop name. So you'd have to go through a whole list of names to find that person again. And most people just aren't going to do that. Well, with us, over time, what would be nice, what I would love to see happen is then you say, okay, well, I'm going to go to that list for that craft fair because, it's the Ann Arbor Craft Fair. It's a big one, and so there are going to be a lot of people in Handcraft Nation who went to that one. And then I can look through and I can see the pictures of the different artists or their products that you're going to get that same vibe experience. And you'd be like, oh yeah, it was her, the one who made like hand painted mixed media light switch covers. That's her. And then you can connect. So that's kind of the tool that we're going to offer.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that was one of my questions I was going to ask is there going to be a way for people to list their in-person events to kind of lean into that? So it's fantastic that you're already working on that. Because yeah, that has definitely happened to me where you're shopping and you're like, well, I don't have a reason to buy that yet, but I'd want to be able to find it in the future. And you always lose track. Like you have that card, then I'll look at the card later and I'm like, I don't remember what this is related to. All I remember was that awesome skull candle that someone I know will want, but like nothing else is attached to that memory in terms of how to find them again. So I'm really intrigued by that and interested to see how that develops. Couple other just kind of like logistical questions. Is, with the directory, it's run by you and your brother. How are you kind of incorporating seller feedback as this, because it is it's a private business that we've seen a couple different models. And how are you, just incorporating seller feedback and having that relationship with your sellers?
Yeah, so we started with a kind of a focus group to sort of build the tool initially, and then I reached out to a small group of artists who I did not know. It was like purely cold contact, and said, "Hey, would you like to join this thing? And I'm not going to charge you any money for it because I just want to experiment and see what happens." And so that sort of core group of testers kind of helped us. Were patient with us as we sort of rearranged things and tried different things before we got to a place that we felt comfortable launching more broadly in the beginning of April. And now we're open to anybody who wants to join and who kind of likes the trajectory that we're on. This is kind of a good moment to kind of come aboard. And we're very open. People are sending us messages all the time. A lot of people are really focused right now on which is kind of interesting, less on the web tool and more of how we're going to build like our social audiences. So that's been something that we've been sort of talking more about in the last couple of weeks that I kind of hadn't expected. I did think there would be more conversation related to the website itself, but people are really concerned about building audiences on Instagram in particular as things change there. And as like the realification sort of sets in on Instagram and Facebook, a lot of people are really struggling to break through from a marketing perspective. And since we're sort of positioning ourselves as a marketing service, those are starting to be the conversations that I see us being a big part of, and so our email marketing is going to be something that's really important. Right now, my brother kind of hates that we're doing this, but I'm insisting on it. We're doing a Substack for now to sort of just build another audience. I'm treating it like another social media platform. And then once we sort of hit a certain level with that, we'll just sort of port that over onto our website itself so that we're kind of keeping all of that traffic within our own world. But we're still in that kind of outreach mode where things are very open. And like right now, if you kind of come aboard and become part of what we're doing, you would have a pretty significant influence on things because I'm sort of looking for people to kind of give us some advice on that.
Fantastic. And then what, and we will towards the end, we'll do a screen share and go ahead and look at the site. But what is involved in actually setting up that page for a seller on the site? Is it just like a couple photos and then some information? Since it's a little different than a marketplace, can you just walk us through that?
Yep. So we have a demo video that walks you through the whole process and takes about 4 minutes. And that's if you're like really focused slow. So it's basically the equivalent of a form and you're filling out your shop name. We have a set medium list and there's a reason why we have the mediums that we have. We want to sort of make sure that we have a robust number. Every time you click on a particular medium on the site, we want people to see things. So it's the type of thing where you're going to have jewelry, but you're not yet going to have like beaded cuff jewelry. It's not going to be that hyper specific on the mediums. Maybe that'll change over time, but I doubt it, because again, we want to sort of maximize our rankings in various particular keywords. And so that's the reason why we have the things we have. So those are kind of fixed. You have to choose from a drop down list on that. Now, keyword land is the wild, wild west. You want to present yourself according to various different keywords. We're open to that. You get to add whichever ones you want. We have some that we'll also add because we think they will be helpful to you. But if you want to bill yourself as women owned, as Black owned, if you want to do queer owned, like you get to decide what those keyword labels look like. You want to add things like nature inspired. You want to add things like small batch. You want to add organic, non-toxic, whatever words work like that you like, you get to put those in. And then more of a narrative description that can come straight from your website. If you're really struggling with that or that's not in your wheelhouse, I have helped several of our members to write just very basic, simple copy. And over time, you can change that. You can edit it at any point as your story changes, as things shift. It's real simple to go back in and just tweak it. Anybody who's been working on Etsy or Facebook or running your own website, this will be small potatoes from a tech perspective. And then it'll take you over to a Stripe to sign up as a formal subscriber, and that's it. Your shop will go live as soon as you're done through that process. But again, then there's kind of a few days before the subscription formally kicks in where I can kind of go in and be like, oh, nope, you're a drop shipper. I'm sorry, you will not be continuing this journey with us.
Yes. Okay. Simple is always nice. So that's very cool. And then I think we talked about this. Did your brother build as a web developer? Did he build it himself? Okay.
Yes, it's a custom build using a lot of the same open source tools that others have been talking about. At the point, it's starting to kind of sound like we're all converging on certain ways of doing things, and so the look and feel of our website, as you'll see, is going to look kind of familiar at this point. But I think that's good. That's healthy. We're all there's a certain style and certain expectations of ease of use that are sort of becoming normalized now in our current era. So we're keeping up.
Yeah. Oh, Christy asked if it was WordPress because that's the one she knows and uses now.
And there's a reason for that, because WordPress is functionally impossible to have lots and lots of different users all maintaining their own content. So
that was the problem we ran into.
Our back end is very straightforward, and we could scale very, very easily to like 5,000-10,000 members, and the functionality would not be affected. Now, that's a pretty far ways off. I think if we can get to 500 people in the next couple of years, we would be very sustainable. And that's another difference between us and some of the other marketplaces that we've talked about this weekend is, for me, I'm very focused on making sure that this is a sustainable enterprise. And so that does mean we have to get to a certain number of members within a certain amount of time in order for us to be able to cover our costs and continue. But I'm not that interested in having a large team of people that I'm managing. I'm not interested in sort of broadening our scope to be something wildly different from what we're doing now. I'm not trying to tell you how to run a business. I'm not trying to tell you how to I'm not pretending that I'm going to offer you the best community you've ever been part of in your whole life. What I'm offering is a very specific SEO tool and some really good content marketing that's going to be focused on the exact type of people who actually take the time to physically go to arts and crafts fairs and then need a better online tool to help them sort of like smooth over the gaps sometimes that happen once those events are over.
Right, that like in-person to online transfer, that follow-up transfer for sure. It sounds like you really envision this as being one of the many tools a seller may use, one that's, focused in a specific way for, aimed at kind of a specific type of seller and customer. And one of the, like we were just talking about in diversification, one of the tools available to them.
I really think that our ideal customer is somebody who's decided I'm going to try to do this on my own. I'm going to run a Shopify page. I'm not interested in a lot of bells and whistles on a lot of other stuff, but I do need a little bit of help from the SEO and marketing perspective, but I'm not going to pay a whole lot of money for it. So I don't like Facebook. I don't want to do Facebook boosting and all that nonsense. So what we're offering is a fairly low fee to offer in exchange for something that will help boost the ranking of your own website. And then that's it.
Yeah. With that, and I know you're very early off in starting, so you may not have you may just be in a like, let's see where it goes type place. But are there any other kind of services you envision offering in the future? You mentioned already like helping some sellers with copy for their website. Have you considered just anything else you're thinking about having be a part of Handcraft Nation?
What I would love to be doing is, I mean, I would love to be in this position where the directory is so big and robust and happy that now people are like, okay, let's do a little bit more in terms of content production. And then I would come into play with what I really like to do, which is to tell stories about people. And so to be able to write additional copy, I don't know. Sometimes what I like to think about, and this isn't necessarily like a real thing, it's definitely happening, but in my mind, what I envision is kind of like a boost package for people where you're like, okay, this year I'm going hard. I'm going to go to like a dozen or like, 25 different craft fairs. I really want to like leverage my presence and I need some extra copy to help. And so then I would be in a position that year to sort of work with you and write copy about you that would show up like on our site. We would do like more with you in the email marketing materials. There would just be like more attention to you for like that year. And then you're like, okay, I'm exhausted the next year. I need to take a break. I don't want to keep paying you for that extra stuff. And so then we just go back to like the normal, okay, now you're a regular member of the directory and you don't have to like talk to me like every other week about how we're going to sort of try to get more attention for you from a PR perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense because there is, in starting off and then in scaling bigger, there is often like plateaus and then kind of jumps you got to make right in your in your sales and your volume and how much money you're bringing in. So often there's you're like, I'm here and I know to go bigger. I can't, it's not a ramp, it's a jump. So I gotta get to that next ledge. My son plays lots of like platforming video games. So I'm just imagining the like Mario Wonder game in my head now.
And I think, my brother and I both come from the business services side of things. And so like, I'm an editorial person. I write like content for large universities and like the Mellon Foundation. Like I do all sorts of, I've done contracts for the federal government. Like I've done lots of really cool stuff like that. And so that's my wheelhouse. And my brother is like the guy who makes kind of cool tools and kind of fun stuff on the website side. And so as the directory grows and we have a stronger resource pool that we can sort of like do more with that, then I think it will become more interesting and more exciting for everybody who's involved. And again, if we end up sort of bringing on some contractors to help us do that type of stuff, that would be great. But I'm not really interested in setting up like a San Francisco office. Like I'm just, I live in Central Alabama. My brother lives outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like we live in these places that tend to be really overlooked by big tech and by social media influencers. There are a lot of really, really good, smart and talented and thoughtful people who are making stuff in like this corridor of the country. And there's really nothing. There's a lot of what happens right now on social media and in e-commerce is extractive of people like this and not necessarily supportive. They say, oh yeah, you have that nice dream. That's great. Well, how about you take my courses on how to become, some sort of like master of social media marketing or something, or how about you pay me this, or how about you do this, or how will, there's just a lot of extraction and dream predation that I think happens on creatives who live outside of the coast. I can't speak to the coastal experience. I don't know, but I know what I feel here. And so this is, for me, I'm coming from a perspective of like, I've spent my life in the quote unquote flyovers in the Midwest and the deep South. And I think that a tool like this is genuinely helpful to the arts and crafts fair set.
Fantastic. Yeah, we were actually we were just talking about that when we were talking about local and states, people were asking about like, what about the rural areas? What about the smaller states? Because yeah, although I will say that kind of, oh, here's your dream of being a creative. To do it, you only need to give me so much money and I'll teach you how to sell it. Like that happens everywhere. It's probably a little more extreme when there aren't those like other resources available, like in the more populated areas. But I see it all the time. It's pretty. There's all the people trying to make cool things and sell them, and then there's all the like layers of people on top trying to make money from them.
Yep.
um,
And so we're
and
sort of stripping some of that back, you know, and if you want, you know, if you're selling on 3 different platforms, we can link to 3 different platforms. That's fine. If you're not selling on any platform at all, that's fine. I'm totally platform agnostic. And that I have not seen another directory that does that, that's as broad as that. There are other directories that are very niche focused. And so like like the Soap Makers Guild, you know, they're really great, but they only focus on sort of their particular members, right? And then there are a lot of guilds that don't do any public facing information at all. You join, like I love the Craft Industry Alliance. I'm a member, but you can't necessarily see who are the member businesses of that unless you become a member, and then you get to access the networking thing because it's designed as a networking tool within the industry. And a lot of the guilds are sort of set up that way, and that's fine, but that doesn't help the artist build SEO and build attention. There has to be something that's more public facing, that's simple, that's inclusive to a lot of different people. Again, I would love to have every soap maker in this country have a page. I would love to have every clothing maker have, you know, those are sort of like particular areas that I'm really passionate about because they so often get overlooked. Anyway, now I'm on a soapbox.
It's all right. Everyone, it's been, it's great to see everyone's passion. Everyone's had kind of their thing that they clearly like, they get very excited about. That's, you know, the way that, the part that is more like personal that they care about so much. One last, question about logistics, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the site. I wrote this question because of the kind of snafu that happened with the Michael's makerspace, where with the beta group found language in the terms and conditions that said Michael's like essentially got like the rights to your pictures or your design if you set up through them, and which of course everyone was very upset about. So, and I know Etsy has, and most marketplaces have general language that they can use your photos for their own marketing. Is that kind of the setup that Handcraft Nation has? I assume there's no other like rights people are offering up by signing up to Handcraft Nation, but I want to double checking with everyone essentially.
Yep. As of right now, I'm really sensitive to that issue. And I think it's especially the case with like the fact that we have a lot of painters and people who do hand drawn stuff. And so I have no intention of using images of people's work to to promote our site specifically. I think it's my job to come up with graphics that sell the site. Because again, I'm not selling products. I'm selling I'm selling I don't know, a network. I'm selling the opportunity to I'm selling information is what I am. I'm offering a pathway for you to find somebody that you want to buy something from. So I'm not trying to hijack somebody's image. If you're seeing images that we're resharing on social media, that's because it's going directly to those people's sites. You know what I mean? Like yes, I reshare people's reels, our members' reels on Instagram, for example. But you see their name on the thing. Like that's that's just sort of part and parcel to the thing. If we're going to use images of from people's shops in our email marketing, it'll be clearly labeled like, hey, if you're looking for this thing, this person, here's their page on Handcraft Nation. So yeah, I will make you click on my site to then get to their website, but I don't think that anybody's going to think that's particularly nefarious. That's sort of obvious. But we have an Envato subscription specifically for this reason, so that we're licensing images from photographers who have specifically put their images up to be used for commercial purposes, so that we can mix and match and make our own stuff. And you'll see that on our homepage. We've just got an image that we've licensed for commercial use. The photographer does not want their name attached to that. And then underneath, you'll see sort of a rotating random image from one of our makers that then if you click on that, it goes to them specifically.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and take a look. Because yeah, I think it's a question that doesn't always get brought up, but I do think it's an important question of like, how is the site being promoted? How are my own products and photos used in the promotion? Because it can definitely get a little tricky.
If
And
you're working with painters, you can't you just can't.
yeah, so here we go, Handcraft Nation. And I've got it fairly skinny so I can see multiple things at once.
Yeah.
But
And this is kind of just our placeholder homepage for now. My brother has some really pretty designs mocked up that we will see. And so this image here, this you can click, it rotates. It's at random. I have no control over this. And so it just cycles through. Every time you refresh the page, you'd see somebody different. And so if you scroll up to the top, you'll see directory. And then you can sort of choose, in our little hamburger menu. You can also do it this way. This is fine. This is great. You can view all shops, maybe that's helpful, or you can view by state or medium or keyword. You can do an adventure. That's kind of the idea.
All shops.
And so then you'll see this will be kind of a long and overwhelming list. But then if you click on Abby's shop page there, or Carol's, that's fine. Anybody's is fine. Then you'll go into their shop page. And you see, I love this. I love the story behind these dolls. So Agape dolls, this is a really short and sweet description. Your description can be much longer if you choose it to be. Then it has your logo.
And they've got lots of links. Yeah, I got.
And then underneath those links, in the next couple of weeks, there'll be another category that says fairs and festivals, and then you'll be able to click on wherever she's showing that year if she chooses to put that in there. A lot of people may not, and if they choose not to, then it won't stay on their page.
Yeah. And then, here we'll do, since we've been talking about local, this reminds me of what, it's different, but it reminds me, I'm in Washington, so I'm way down here. The way you've organized it reminds me a little bit of how Virtual Market is doing things in Canada, where it puts shops first instead of products. So more focused on like, you're interested in this artist and the cool thing they do in this medium or area. So and then the shop page. Okay, wonderful.
And as you know, these pages sort of flesh out. So once we get to the point where you have a few dozen people who are in Washington, then we'll need to organize the information a little differently on those top level pages. We'll do like photo carousels. We have mock-ups ready for when we hit a certain scale. Right now, it's just sort of all together because then it's more fun for us.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think that's all of my questions, and we'll see if anyone watching has any questions. And otherwise, is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you to those who are still here. I know it's been a long day, so I'm not sure how many people are watching live, but whether you're watching live now or if you see this later, we're a big tent. We want to help. We're here. We're small, and that's kind of by design. We're not interested in extracting. We're providing a service. It's a very clear and straightforward service. If you see that has value to you, then join us and let's see what happens.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, Sandy, for joining us. And we're very excited to see how Handcraft Nation develops as it continues to grow.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.